This podcast is a TOFOP production.
Head to tofop.com for more.
The following episode of TOFOP is rated MA for mature audiences. It may contain sexual references, time travel references, allegations of bin misconduct, and mild coarse language. TOFOP advises that this episode is not suitable for anyone under the age of 15 or anyone who thinks a comedy conversation between two old mates sounds like a terrible idea for a show. Minors must be accompanied by a parent or guardian. This is John Deek speaking.
Relax, this is TOFOP. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Wil Anderson. Hello, and thank you for watching.
And I had to, for a second, just remember what show we're doing. This is, for the first time in a long time, we're doing back-to-back podcasts.
Back-to-back.
But not back-to-back TOFOPs. We did a Two Guys, One Cup, and now we've just shifted gears into Two Guys.
How will we shift gears between those dramatically different offerings to the podcasting markets?
Well, I was wondering about that because I've been posting, Two Guys, One Cup. We do a highlight video each week that we post to our socials, and I've been posting it to the TOFOP Instagram feed. And I'm wondering if this is annoying fans of TOFOP who are like, either, we don't want that niche-y.
Don't ask people if something we're doing is annoying them.
Oh, really?
People are willing to volunteer if they're being annoyed.
Okay.
As we've learned recently.
Well,
very willing when they're being annoyed to let you know that they are annoyed. I don't think that we should open the floor for people to air their grievances.
Okay. It's not an invitation to find out people are annoyed, but
this is not Festivus. This is not the annual airing of podcast grievances.
No, I guess the question was more, is there any, what do you think the percentage of crossover is between our two audiences? Because I've been posting it with the idea that, I think if you like TOFOP, you like this, because generally it's not like we're posting a 1-minute clip of us discussing stats and stuff. It's just TOFOP.
Well, it'd be impossible for them to do that because one does not exist.
Yeah, exactly. It's stuff of nonsense. And so I'm like, okay. I think, like last week we discussed a player changing his eyebrows to suit the sponsor that he had. And I thought, that's funny. But do you think that is there a Jane Caro section of our audience who are like, I do not care for sports ball?
Oh, no, they're listening to Philosophy.
Oh, yeah.
I get those letters.
Right.
I do not care for your other nonsense.
Pull your socks up, auntie.
When, obviously a lot of people who subscribe to Philosophy, because all the money from Patreon goes to the same place, it's all ends up at TOFOP HQ. And so when I was not doing new episodes of Philosophy, I posted on the Patreon page letting people know because I didn't think it was fair for them to keep paying for their subscription if, they weren't getting new episodes, or at least that they should know that new episodes weren't coming out. And some people have stayed on there, I think, because that was just their way of supporting all the things that we do. So they don't, they don't mind. Some of them have moved over, hopefully, to TOFOP because I posted all the links to people and you can get all the incredible James Fosdyke artwork and, comic strips and all those things that are actually, if you're on the, the TOFOP Patreon page, there's actually heaps of bonus content.
Mm.
Like if you're on the Philosophy, Patreon page, occasionally you get a letter from me explaining to you why you're not getting the thing that you signed up for. That's the only bonus content you're getting around there. But some people have stuck around, and of the people that have stuck around, there must be a percentage who just don't know that I've stopped doing the podcast. They've signed up
for sure,
and they have just keep subscribing, and so suddenly I understand that subscription model that has worked against me so many times. The fact that I think I have currently 3 active Netflix accounts, that I am signed up to every iteration of every fucking streaming service in the world and will never quit any of them despite the fact that I use them or not. I'd like to think that is currently working in our favor. And there's a few people who've just signed up to Philosophy for life or until their credit card expires.
Definitely. There's Patreons that I am signed up for that I have never once accessed. I've never once checked out. It's more of it's a gesture of appreciation for the entertainment I've enjoyed. It's like, here's some dollars every month, but I have not actually accessed any of the bonus stuff. I don't even know if the shows are still going. So I'm just like, I assume that, this money will be put to good use. At some point you entertained me, and I feel like that money will be
for the rest of your life or until my credit card runs out. You're getting $15 a month from me.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Like, it's all got to come to an end at some point. Like, we talk a lot about Smodcast being this inspiration for TOFOP, but like, I don't really consume any Kevin Smith entertainment anymore.
Me neither.
Like, there's not really any Smodcast to speak of anyway. Like, Scott Mosier's off directing, $1 million animated movies and stuff. But I'm also like appreciative of, my history. And it's like, I still want to support, like I still subscribe to Smodcast and have them come into my feed, but I don't really listen to them anymore. But it's like, I guess that will happen to us at some point, that all these wonderful people who followed us in this 10-year journey will just be like, oh, yeah, I remember listening to them, but I don't really dig what they're doing now. They're ranting a lot about stuff, bins and...
Honestly, like 9 episodes have been about the boy band 5. I don't know what's going on. Which, by the way, came in very handy to me this morning.
Good.
Because completely randomly, I was doing some press this morning and I was talking to Fitzy and Whipper on Nova.
I'm aware of them.
And it came off the back of Harry Styles, and we started talking about boy bands. And
brilliant.
They've kind of like thrown up, just as like a half offer, the idea of, did you ever have in fact, Fitzy's literally gone into it. I know you're into more alternative music, but was there ever a boy band and then I've done like 5 minutes of could do it at the gala, best of gold on I'm like, 5 are still on tour, but there's only 3 of them, man.
I'm so glad that you got to put it to use, because I got a real lesson in knowing your audience, because I was in Melbourne over the weekend and visiting friends, and my mate Nick, we watched the football together, and Nick's kind of like you. He likes his alternative music. He's into sort of more heavier stuff like Tool and things like that, but he also really loves hip hop. And so, we had a bit of medicine, so we're having a bit of a chat, and I was feeling a bit confident. And so I said, oh, you know what I've been listening to a lot of, and I know it's like, silly, it's kind of ironic, but I've really been listening to 5. And he was like, 5, I don't know who 5 is. And I'm like, oh, they were this this English boy band, and they're still around. There's only 3 of them, but they're still called 5, did the whole thing.
What I love, by the way, is last week on the podcast when you declared that you were never going to talk about 5 again.
On the show, you brought it up
the next 35 minutes. And then now you're taking these 5 conversations out into the wild, trying to have them one-on-one with people.
I won't do it again, because I was like, oh yeah. And then I just repeated the bit from last week's TOFOP where I'm like, oh, he talks about Jimmy Fly Snooker, and it's Jimmy Superfly Snooker. It can't be Jimmy Fly Snooker. It's not his name. And he's like, what's the song called? I said, Everybody Get Up. And I said, it's actually a fun kind of like, a poppier version of like a Beastie Boys song. You just get like a hard rock kind of riff and you just rap over the top. And we put it on, and like a minute into it, he just sort of side-eyed me, and he was like, this is terrible. And I'm like, yeah, I know it's terrible, but listen to this rap bit. And then we go to the rap bit. And I'm like, that's Jay. Jay's gone missing. Like, no one knows where Jay is these days. And it was one of those things where, I don't know, like you sort of like introduce someone, and then like it just became painful for everyone. Like, because his wife and Jem was in the room as well, and his daughter.
You've spent a fair amount of time working on your sex swing,
yeah,
right? You've been fiddling around in the garage for 8 weeks, putting together your sex swing, and then you've taken everyone down to the garage and gone, look, I've been working on this project. I think you're really going to like it. And then everyone's like, oh my god, we've got to get out.
It was awkward, because then we got through the Jay's rap, and I'm like, see, he says like Jimmy Fly Snooker, and it's like, yeah, but then there's still like 2 minutes of the song to go that no one in the room liked or wanted to hear, but I'm the one who's like flying the flag going, no, it's not. Look, I get it's bad. I understand that, but it's more just are you not getting the Jay? Jay's gone missing. Like, no one knows where Jay is, and there's only 3 of them now. And all right, okay. And so we just sort of let it peter out, and then he went to his phone and put on some like underground hip hop guy from New York or something, and like completely embarrassed me. So I put my tail between my legs. I was like, all right, I'm never doing that again.
Well, you're the anti-vaxxer at a scientist party.
Right.
That's what's happened there. Like, you've just gone, no, you've got to understand, like, there's Bill Gates and there's microchips.
But I've never known how this thing works, like what's cool and what's not, because this same friend, like about 6 months ago when we're at his place, he put on this playlist that was like yacht rock. So it was all like Robert Palmer and stuff. And I'm like, well, this is shit music, he's like, no, it's not. It's like actually really, really well written. And back in the 80s, like the pop music was different. I'm like, how come that gets a pass? Like, Robert Palmer Yacht Rock, and then I put on 5 and that sucks. Like, can't we just both like things that are shit and we just respect each other's terrible choices?
I think that the difference is that you learnt the rest.
I went too far in. I committed.
You went too far in. You got like red pilled when it comes to the boy band Five Hive, and I'm here for it. By the way, I'm not against this in any way. In fact, to the point, and I think this is probably the secret to the long lasting nature of this podcast, if there is one, which is that we are here for each other's bullshit in a way that other people aren't. So whatever ridiculous thing you want to talk to me about, I am fine with it. Like,
well, I'm glad, but that was a real kind of sobering moment where I was like, and it's also because I think, when we talked about what prompted it, was all about like, in the midst of floods and horrible things happening, I needed some kind of comfort food. But now it sort of feels...
Did you set that up, though, when you were trying to present it to your friends? Like, did you tell that story? See, that's... If you've ever going to try it again, you've got to start
I need a Claire Tonti there to draw it out of me. the deep psychological scarring and the lack of identity that I am...
You have to connect it with this like legitimate moment, because like as soon as you bring up the floods and being in the middle of a natural disaster, and like and by day I was volunteering, helping other people clean out the devastation that was wrought on their lives. Anyway, the only thing that really got me through that in a traumatic sense, a therapy sense, if you will, was like this relief, this brain bleach, and this fascinating story about this, like in the same way as K-pop is incredibly it is its own thing. We all know that it's manufactured. Like, this is the beginning of that. And if you'd done all that first and then gone, by the way, I've learned all Jay's raps and he's gone missing, I think by then you would have had him, like you could have gone, one of the worst things about the floods were all the people who went missing. Speaking of people going missing, do you know that Jay from the boy band Five?
What's really funny too is that one of my old mates from high school, who he lives in New York now. He's lived in New York for about better part of 20 years. But when we were young, we were very close. And when we left school, we backpacked around Asia together and stuff. And out of the blue, I haven't heard from him in years. He messaged me a link to an article, which is like, I can't remember what it's called, a girl power, like reevaluating the Spice Girls. This idea that the Spice Girls were this manufactured kind of pop band who had this manufactured, catch cry of girl power, but then that actually gave rise to a genuine kind of like feminist movement, which is now there's all these adult women now who, who sort of hold those values true. And he sent that to me saying, hey man, I don't know why, but this made me think of you. And I was like, holy shit, have I been like carrying the can for manufactured boy and girl bands for 20 years and I just don't know it? Like, is this some kind of born identity where like I've been knocked out and I discovered that I'm actually this like champion of manufactured pop, because I don't recall. I mean, I know that I had an ironic a fascination with the Spice Girls in uni, and that I went and saw Spice World at the movies twice. But I also don't really remember being like this, I love the Spice Girls and I went to see them in concert and I can name all their birthdays or anything like that.
Yeah, but you know what? You are a man who will tell you what you want and what you really, really want. And that's what I've always said about you is, I think it's like you talk about the Spice Girls. I mean, Adele could not be more a revered and credible artist. And she talks about how completely like informative on who she was and what she became the Spice Girls were. So I just think you could do that with the band Five.
Right. But they weren't incredibly informative on me as a in my development as a 44-year-old man.
I mean, does that really matter? Like, we can backdate some of this story. Like, if you are going to be the chief proponent for the boy band Five, like, I think that is more interesting. Like, of course, there's going to be plenty of people who are talking about the Spice Girls and how the Spice Girls, but essentially what you've got to do is look at all the stuff that they've done around the Spice Girls and just copy it, but make it about the band Five. Plus, you've got the mystery. Like, imagine if, like, like Posh Spice had like disappeared and nobody knew where Posh Spice was. Like, people would be talking about the Spice Girls.
Well, do you know
nonstop.
what the crossover is? I mean, there's obviously the what's his name from X Factor, Simon Cowell. He was behind both Five and the Spice Girls. But Jay and Mel C from the Spice Girls, they dated at one point.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that right? So Jay and Sporty.
Jay and Sporty, they dated at one point. Yeah, very short,
Okay,
very
interesting.
short-lived. But yeah, they were partners.
Is that why he went
I
missing?
don't think so.
Is there any chance that Sporty Spice has had Jay from Five
No,
killed?
but she did post something because he, like I said, he has not been cited. He's done 2 appearances in since the days of Five's heyday, and I saw on Mel C's Twitter, someone posted a screen grab of him all bearded and looking all retired and living in the hills like he does, and said, "Hey, do you know who this is?" And she's like, "Of course, that's like lovely Jason, blah 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 blah. He was such a sweetheart," and I'm like. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. I wonder if they are still in touch. And if you got to Sporty, would you get to Jay? Because as you know, Will, is Jay okay? I have to know where he is and is he okay?
I need to know. Is there a chance? Like, how hard would it be? Because how old would Jay be
My
at this
age is
stage?
40,
do you think?
45.
Okay, perfect. This is perfect for my plan. How much physically would you have to do to be able to pass for Jay?
No, I don't think too much. I'd have to, he
like current day Jay.
I would say he would be bald now. He was definitely balding.
Okay.
So I'd have to shave my head. I'd have to get a pretty sort of thick, like he's got that, I think it's a Ross Noble. Where's Ross Noble from?
Yeah, Geordie.
Yeah, he's got a bit of a Geordie
right?
accent,
Newcastle
I
or
think.
something. Is he?
Oh, it might be Welsh actually. It might be a Welsh accent, but it sounds weird. It's one of those weird British accents. Not one of those ones we can all do. One of those weird ones where you're like, "Where are you from?"
But like, there's always a case of like Prince Philip's my dad, or like someone will come along and they go like, "I'm this person that's gone missing. I am that person."
So you're saying I just say I'm Jay? Oh,
yes.
Well,
because Jay's gone away.
Jay's gone away.
So Jay's not going to come. Either two things happen. Either Jay's happy because like it's like, great, I'm back in the band. There's another guy who knows all my raps. Everything's fine. Or
he's forced to come out of retirement.
you draw out Jay.
Brilliant idea.
That's how you get to find.
Okay,
him.
so is it?
You come out and you say that you are.
But do I have to get the other? Do I have to get the other members of Five on board? Doesn't matter. I just start an Instagram account saying Jay from Five, and I just start sending out missives, just rapping freestyle raps.
Jay from Five is alive is the Instagram handle, and then you just you start building a story that you are indeed Jay.
But I
from
think
Five.
the problem with that is it will immediately be shot down by the existing members of Five, like the 3 guys. Will go, that's not Jay, and so there's no need for Jay to come out.
No, so you've got to convince them or get them in on it. Maybe they're fine to be in on it.
They might
right?
be. Publicity would be great.
Yeah. So you rock up one day looking like
so here's
Jay.
what we do. Because I think it's what would be better. Because rather than looking like Jay now, because people don't want that.
Yeah.
They want me to look like Jay looked when he was in his 20s. So he was blonde. He had his signature thing was he had an eyebrow ring. That's how you knew he was the bad boy. Mm-hmm. So I get blonde and I get the eyebrow ring. And I think he sort of experimented with like facial hair. I'll have to dye everything. I'll have to dye eyebrows, hair, beard, and I'll get the eyebrow ring. And I'll have to work on my raps.
Okay. So you do that. We go to see them at the Rudy Hill RSL when they're on tour. And you are dressed
like Jay.
Jay
in 1999 too. So I'm wearing like a FUBU like sports jersey with a big like number on it. I got some Klepper mustard colored pants on and some Timberlands, baggy.
So you're ready to go. And then who's doing the raps now?
Scott.
Yeah, so when Scott's about to lay down, you just like, what would be your best one if you were going to choose like one?
Everybody get up.
Yeah, everybody get up. So you're going to do like the J bars
Resident President.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's right. You're doing Resident President.
Yeah.
Like you just go.
I jump on stage.
You jump on stage and you start doing it. I mean, if Five Ive are at the Rudy Hill RSL doing a gig and someone comes along dressed, put yourself in their shoes, right? Yeah. Someone comes along dressed as Jay and knows all Jay's raps. That's a fun night on the tour. You get that guy up to do a verse.
Yeah, of course. Like Dave Grohl does that with fans all the time. Gets them up to play along. Would it? I mean, but would it also not? Would you not just look out into the crowd and go, "Well, that guy's clearly a massive fan."
Okay. How much do you think it would cost me if I went up to beforehand to like Five's manager and I was like, "Hey, my friend here is like the biggest Jay fan of all time. Look at him. He's even dressed like Jay was back in the day." He dyed his hair for this occasion. He's like real. Just
forget the fact that he's 45 years old for a start. Just imagine he's 20,
and he would really just love to do one verse with the group tonight. Could you do Resident President? Is that okay? Like, and how much do you think it would cost me to pay off Five's manager for them to?
I don't think.
You know what? I'm willing to lie a little. He's dying.
Oh,
this is like his Make-A-Wish. Like, and all he's ever really wanted to do. Five are his favorite band. He just wants to do this one verse. Could you let him do it? Do you think that they would agree to that?
100%.
So why aren't we doing this?
Well, that's a good point. Why aren't we doing it? They would definitely allow that to happen. I don't know if that works though to bring Jay out. I mean, isn't the end goal to bring Jay out? I think it's more.
Well, no. Oh, sorry. This is only me planting the seed. Like, I'm assuming at this point that you do so well in this rap that they're all like, "Oh my god!" Like, it's like almost having like Jay back.
I've got a better strategy.
Good.
Okay, so you know that urban myth about Paul's dead,
Paul McCartney,
and and MI6 approached the surviving Beatles to say, "Hey, this is going to cause mass suicide amongst teenage girls. We have to get a double in."
Yeah,
we approach the three members of Five and say, "We are from ASIO." Believe it or not, you guys are still very, very popular in Australia. Huge fan base. You might not be reflected in your download numbers or your social media, but trust us. Like, we've got the data right here and we hold up like a briefcase filled with sawdust. It's in here. All our files are in here. We bang it and there's like dust floating out of it. It's all in here. Now, these fans of Five, they're organizing a mass suicide, a Jonestown style Kool-Aid event. And it could be mass casualties, but you three of five.
3/5.
You 3/5. You've got the chance to prevent a mass casualty event.
But hang on, how are we justifying that 20 years after the peak of their career, the fans of Five have decided to have a suicide pact?
Because there is a hardcore group, because you only need like 1,000.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people is like too many deaths? One of the members from Five, one of you members of Five, like, are you really going to challenge me and say, well, look, how many fans are going to be? How many deaths is enough? Is 2 like an acceptable number of deaths? No. So just don't question us.
I think you'll find in this post-COVID world, Charlie, 2 is a perfectly acceptable number of daily deaths.
That's true.
We're wrapped if it's only 2.
We're just slapping our briefcase, our sawdust briefcase, saying, "Don't, we got the numbers. They're watertight. We have lots of numbers in here." So we say to them to prevent.
We've got lots of numbers in here.
And to prevent those deaths, they need to see at least 4 members of Five reformed. Don't worry about abs.
Okay,
we don't need abs.
We can work on this later.
But we need Jay back, and we've got the perfect doppelganger. We've got a guy who has been learning his raps. He's been immersed in Five, because not lying there. That'll be the easiest part to sell.
Okay, you know what the other thing is too. You're an actor.
What? I'm an actor.
This is a little what's the fucking South Park puppet movie?
Team America.
Like, they've got you for your acting skills to go undercover.
Yeah.
Like, you've been playing all these roles.
I'm so good at acting. I'll play the ASIO agent, then I'll play the guy pretending to be Jay, and they won't know the difference.
You'll need to, because I can't cover either of those things.
And I'm going to do it in the same room. And the 3 members of Five will be going, is that guy just like, I think he's changing the outfits. He's putting on a FUBU top and some clipper pants and some. Oh, good day, I'm Jay.
This is the ASIO guy in a FUBU jacket.
All right, so we say that to them, and and I reckon we make it like, legit.
Yeah.
Look. We understand that Jay is gone missing and you're not in contact with him, but we've got this guy who is a dead ringer. So we want you for the next month of the tour. This guy's going to go on tour with you, but you're going to start posting a lot on your socials, the four of you. Make a big fuss about Jay being back, Jay being back. The worst thing that could happen to you, the three members of five, is that you get great publicity. I mean, no publicity is bad publicity, right? And, let's be honest, we've looked at the numbers on Spotify. You could do with a bit of a boost. So what do you reckon, the three members of five? What do you reckon they say?
They say, well, as we always say, in five, all we need is a clear majority. So we just need two of the three of the five for a majority. 2 out of 5 is a majority in this band. So I think we're better off saying, rather than like asking them to act on behalf of their fans, like the threat is directly at them. Otherwise, I think we've got great information about that there might be somebody who is targeting you guys specifically. What we need to do is put in our best agent to just make sure that you guys, and the fact that you're not
that's a good idea.
The fact that you're not a good agent is fine because there's not actually a threat against them. So it's not going to matter. You're just there to infiltrate the band and lure out Jay, our real target.
But wouldn't it be a great twist if it turns out there actually is a threat against five, and suddenly I've got myself caught up in this like cat and mouse game with some like crazed Five fan who just like has always wanted to murder Jay. That's why and we find out that's why Jay's gone underground.
Because Jay was on some sort of hit list. He's had to Fresh Prince of Bel-Air style. He's had to change his identity. You've come back. Oh, this is great. This is actually the plot of your Spice World, the movie about the band Five. Because so you go undercover with this pretend idea that there's a threat against Five. All you want to do is actually just be the new Jay. But then the people who were trying to kill Jay, they realize that Jay is back, or they think that Jay is back. Yeah. And so then they come after you to try to kill you. And then the real Jay has to come out of retirement to defeat the enemies.
Well, this is how it goes, right? So we convince him to let me be the new Jay. Yeah. You cut to an insane asylum. And it's like the news of and Jay has come back to Five. And you see this one guy who hasn't talked in 20 years sitting in a chair. And he just looks up at the TV screen. And then you see him just break the shackles, and it's like, oh shit! I've reactivated this serial killer. But I
like the idea that he's got rap lyrics just scrawled all over his cell,
Superfly Snooker crossed out, just Fly Snooker, Jimmy Fly Snooker underlined. That's what drove him insane. It's either Jimmy Superfly Snooker or Superfly Jimmy Snooker. It's not Jimmy Fly Snooker. That doesn't make any sense.
Just banging his head against the wall.
Yeah, and then I reckon, would that draw the real Jay? I mean, the real Jay might be fantastic. This impersonator can get killed, and then I'm free. I don't have to be in hiding anymore.
Yeah, but I don't think that Jay's that sort of guy.
No,
from what I know about Jay's not going to let an innocent person die.
It'll be a great third act too, when the real Jay turns up to save my life, and then we all learn a lesson, which is that everybody should get up.
Yeah, exactly. Except for the people he's killed. They should stay laying down. And he just finishes the movie and winks and goes, Jay is okay.
Yeah. I mean, before he kills him, he's going to go, baby, when your lights go out, they're going to be out forever. What's the movie called? 9 to 5?
9 to 5. Yeah, exactly.
Wow, we did another 28 minutes on Five. Who would have thought?
I don't know. Tune in next week for the internet's most popular Five related podcast. Anyway, so far we haven't covered anything we covered in our AFL podcast. The boy band Five did not come up, I don't think.
No, I was tempted to bring it up. But then, I mean, I think it's more, I'm more reluctant to introduce TOFOP concepts to Two Guys, One Cup than I am. Because there's definitely a delineation, I think, with that Two Guys, One. There are definitely people who listen to just Two Guys, One Cup, I think. I know those guys and girls because they message me specifically.
Well, I think the reason is also Two Guys, One Cup used to live here.
Yeah.
It used to be a housemate, right? Yeah.
It was Angel to our Buffy.
And this idea that we used to just annoy a whole bunch of people, basically. Two Guys, One Cup started basically because people were getting annoyed at how much we talked about AFL on TOFOP. So we're just like, you know what, they're a great friend, but if they keep living here, they're just going to ruin it for everybody. So they're going to have to go out on their own. So I agree. There are some people in the Two Guys, One Cup audience who never knew that Two Guys, One Cup used to live with TOFOP.
Do you think it's too late to introduce like a concept or a format or a hook to TOFOP? Have we talked about this before?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've talked about it several times over the last 12 years. Should this podcast have a point?
Well, I'm just thinking, like, it's so easy to go into an episode of Two Guys, One Cup because it's like, okay, well, you know, there's games to talk about and people, and it's like when things slow down, we just bring up, did you see this? Whereas, I mean, this is a lot of work, really. You know, to just come up with something. Is it? Well, kind of.
What, we just spent 25 minutes talking about the same topic we've talked about for the last 5 weeks straight. We've done five episodes on the boy band 5.
I know, but that's, I guess you're used to working, like you do improvised shows. You do shows where you just go, okay, I'm just going to get up there and see what happens. But I think from my perspective, I'm like, at least with Two Guys, One Cup, I feel like there's a safety net. Whereas with this, it's like, are we really going to talk about 5 for the 5th? I mean, it would be amazing if this was actually the 5th episode we've talked about.
I mean, it definitely would be at least the 5th you have, because I'm going to count other episodes of FOFOP where you've talked about.
There's at least 2 episodes of FOFOP. Cam Knight and Claire Tonti have definitely talked about 5.
We've talked about it at least 3 times. I would say maybe 4.
Okay, well, all right, let's say it is 5. What a perfect note to go out on. There'll be a ban on 5 from now on. Should we just, like the Bin trilogy found its natural end, and then, you know, months later, maybe even years later, we occasionally reference, or people still send me Bin stuff as if it's like a key part of my personality. I've not had Bin issues in over 4 years, but I'm the Bin guy to a lot of people.
Yeah, but not anymore, Charlie. You are now absolutely the 5 guy.
Oh, no. Oh, no. I've swapped one trope for an even worse one.
So, here's what I think that this show is have you watched, I talked about this with Justin on FOFOP, so I'll try not to go into the same areas. You might not have seen the show, but there is a show on Amazon Prime called Outer Range. Have you seen this?
Aware of it. No.
Okay. Well, at some stage when you've had a little bit of medicine, like sit down and watch yourself a couple of episodes of Outer Range, because it's this Josh Brolin show that what Justin explained to me is that Amazon have a bit of an algorithm that goes through like what parts of things people enjoy and whatever. And this show feels like it's the way I described it on FOFOP was like, it very much is the avalanches of a TV show where from minute to minute, it's just being completely different shows and they're all just joined together in this show. It is one of the most bonkers things you will ever watch in your entire life. It's quite compelling. I'm really enjoying it, but it's like, you literally are like, oh, I get this. This is Stranger Things. Oh, hang on. This is Fargo. Oh, hang on. This is Twin Peaks. And you're just like, it's doing all those things quite well. And I think that that's what TOFOP is. I feel like TOFOP it's just different things joined together in a long conversation. This is a mixtape. It's not an album that has like, you know,
it's a concept. It's a concept.
Yeah. It's a giant sprawling concept piece. That's basically what it is. And there's just times when, like, you know, the musician is obsessed with one particular note transgression or exploring one sort of area. It's fucking jazz, man.
It's jazz, man.
It's fucking jazz.
But do you think this show would be damaged? Like, if we all of a sudden had segments, like regular segments.
Yeah.
Do you think the show would be damaged by that?
Yeah, because we'd stop doing it because it'd be too much work.
I just listen to like other shows though, like Weekly Planet is a perfect example. Like, because they have tropes and things that they lean back on and running jokes and stuff like that. But you know where you sit with those guys. You listen to like the first 10 minutes is going to be news, and then they get to the film or the series or the topic of that week's episode.
But why?
James will trip up Maso.
But why do you need that? Like, why? I mean, it's great
because
that
I
they
feel
have
like
it. But like, why do we need structure? Why can't we be the ones that have no structure? I bet they're envious every week when they're putting together clips and running orders and like having to be across everything.
Well,
like, I mean, our attitude like is that we can do an entire football adjacent podcast where some weekends neither of us will watch a game of football. I think this is a very good model that we have latched onto, Charlie.
the no work model.
Suddenly we should like be going that,
Well,
we need to be across everything.
I'll frame it in another way. So when you're bringing on someone to TOFOP for the first time.
Yes.
And, like when I try and bring on new people as much as I can. And the question that they always ask is, what would you like me to prepare? What would you like to talk about? And I'm always like, oh, well, there is nothing to prepare. We'll just talk about whatever comes up. So if you want to talk about something, bring it in, but don't feel the need. We'll find what the conversation's about as we're doing it. Do you do the same thing? Do you prep people for a FOFOP?
I don't prep people for anything.
There's no courtesy finger with Wil Anderson.
No, I just assume that I'm not just going to jam it in, You don't need a courtesy finger. We're going to do it together. I always think when you're making a podcast, like the way that I always think of it is we're about to make something together. So we get together and we make this conversation, this riff, this world together. And so I did the dollop at the Enmore last night with Hamo as well. So the four of us on stage, finally four, white middle-aged men get a say. And I think it's well beyond its time. But it was such a fun show. And the thing about it is it will never be done again. Like that episode never happens again. It's all improvised in the moment. And the great joy of it isn't like even the audience response in a way, even though the audience response was amazing. The great joy of it is making something with your friends. Like at the end of it, you walk away and you go, there's the thing that we just made that some people will listen to that episode in 5 years or 10 years, or maybe even longer than that. And you just got together with your mates and you made something. And that's what I've always liked about this show is that it doesn't feel like you have to come in with an agenda. I don't feel like I have homework. I can just, if sad things are happening, we can be sad. And if happy things are happening, we can talk about big issues or small issues. I think that is what the show is. Like, we don't need to have what everybody else has.
I think you're right. And to go back to Smodcast, I think that's why I don't listen anymore, is because there isn't that free-flowing, it's Scott and Kevin catching up, because that was the appeal of it. And, Scott has occasionally popped in to do an episode. And when I listen to it, I always really love it. I'm always like, oh, that's right. And these two are such great chemistry, and they're such a great double act, and they really spark off each other really well. But what Kevin does in all his other podcasts is very structured. There's a hook, there's a point to it. Even with Smodcast now, he'll bring someone on to let's re-examine this, or let's talk about your time on this or whatever. So it's more of a formulaic interview show. It's still very much a Kevin Smith show, but it's not what Smodcast was, which was like, we're just going to catch up for an hour, and where does the conversation take us? We'll see.
So Jimmy Pardo does a podcast called Never Not Funny. It's one of the original podcasts. Yep. And during the lockdown, I reckon I've listened to 200 episodes of it. Like, I'd just gone through a period of my time where I'd sort of forgotten about it a bit, or just forgotten how much I liked it or whatever, as you do, you just
dip
in and out. I dipped it back in, and it was the perfect pandemic listening, because you got to chart a course. I listened to 2 years of it, like over the period of like a few weeks. And it's like, I got to hear them like at the start of the pandemic, kind of rationalizing, dealing with it through the history of the show, the story of what the pandemic was through their eyes. And it was really fantastic, because they talk a little bit about that, but then they just play trivia games and, just talk to each other about what they did on the weekend. And it was all that I wanted. I just wanted to know, like, what movie did they see, or did they watch a documentary and they wanted to talk about that? That's actually all I wanted from it. In fact, too many bells and whistles would have got in the way of what I was finding entertaining about it.
Yeah, you're right. Why am I questioning this, Will? We've got the perfect formula.
Well, I mean, this is the only one that suits the time that I have. So I'm working pretty hard to rationalize it and justify it.
I guess it's sort of just an insecurity about like what this is, and will it, like, I mean, I enjoy doing it still, which is amazing after 12 years. That like, this will be fun. I look forward to it. And sometimes I'll come away from like an episode that we've done and I'll be like, there's a really good idea in that. Like, the 5 movie, like if you did some kind of like, wacky, because I remember Jem actually said to me a couple of weeks ago when I was ranting at her about Five and what happened to Jay and stuff. She was like, this, could be an interesting subject for like a limited series. If you did like, there was a boy band that was hugely popular and then they all went their separate ways and now they're in their 40s and they're trying to kind of like reclaim that. And I was like, yeah. And then the Jay character, like he's gone missing.
Finding Jay.
You got to find Jay. But I think it's like, there aren't many, unless you're, you're a comedian, I guess, or a writer, and you work in that field, there's not a lot of opportunities in conversations in your day-to-day life. Like your partner doesn't want to sit down and do hypotheticals with you. Like, there's not a lot of opportunity for you to just like take an idea and then it's essentially workshopping it, isn't it? Like we just bring something up and then we workshop the idea. Like you say, sometimes it's serious, sometimes it's absurd, and sometimes we do a hypothetical. It's like, okay, well, what happened if all these elements? But this is probably the only forum, non-professional. Well, it's non-professional.
It's definitely non-professional.
What I mean to say is like, I get paid to do this with other people from time to time. And that's different to this because this is more, there is no point to what we're doing. Like when I'm doing this with other people, it's because we have a deadline or we have to deliver something down the line. Whereas you and I just like, let's just freestyle for no reason.
I like to think that what basically TOFOP is, okay, if you want to put it in another way then, is I do believe that over the entire course of TOFOP, there are genuinely probably some brilliant ideas. If somebody had taken the idea for that show or that movie or that idea or whatever and had the capacity and organizational skills to run with it, develop it, do all those sort of things, I bet there's a whole bunch of those in there. Basically what we are is like the footage of the Beatles in the studio. And a lot of the time we're just like jamming some old, cover song that we just like to go to. And occasionally, you just get to something that is really good. But a lot of it's just like wasted time in between the good stuff, right? I mean, I think the Beatles had a higher strike rate than we do.
Yeah.
But but I think if somebody went through the entire back catalogue of TOFOP and just went, I'm going to come up with the best ideas they've had over the last 12 years. And then you package them into, say, a 1 hour podcast. I reckon over like 12 years of doing this podcast, we probably had 1 hour of really good ideas. And if you package them into a podcast, it would sound like we knew what we were talking about.
If you selectively edited out of 12. Well, that is the amazing thing about Get Back, isn't it? Is like, they were 26 or something at the end of their peak creativity. They're going to go on to do other great things, but just as that landscape changing, creative force. But there is so much time spent fucking around, like so much of their time in the studio. What I learned from that is like, yeah, sure, they're geniuses, but to get to the genius, they just had to front up like blue collar workers. It's like sometimes John would be late because, he did too much heroin the night before or whatever. But ultimately, they all had enough work ethic where they would just turn up and they would just sit there and they wouldn't chuck the shits. They would just, George did for a couple of days, but they had enough work ethic. They would just stay there and they would play other people's songs. They would sing jokey songs. They would do cover versions of their old stuff, with a new spin on it until finally they just clicked. And it is such a lesson in that, yeah, man, like they're the Beatles, of course, and their top end is much higher than most people's. But what is underneath that top end and is just work ethic. And I think it all stems back from their Hamburg days where because did you notice that in Get Back? They keep referencing, it was like in Hamburg. They're so wistful and nostalgic about that 4-month period they spent in Hamburg playing 12 hours a day. But for them, that was like the best time in the world. Like they just played rock and roll and took a lot of speed and had no responsibilities. But I think what ground in them in that period was like, this is how you make music, is you just fucking put in a 12-hour day until you come up with something.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that podcast episodes of TOFOP just needed to be 12 hours. If we were just willing to do 12 hours a week in a go, I reckon there'd be an hour of good stuff in there.
But to what end? Like the Beatles were writing an album. Like this is the thing about podcasting. To what end? Like,
we put out there that we now consider every episode of TOFOP to be a distinct album. It's not just an episode of the show. In fact, we only publish it first on vinyl. So we do the episode
But are you? But what I'm saying is not just like. So you're saying it's not. It doesn't become something else.
No.
It's not like seeds for a TV show or a movie or whatever. It's just what it is. We are just trying to take podcasting to its absolute creative zenith.
I think we come out, we call ourselves the Beatles of podcasting. And
that'll go down well.
Bigger than the Beatles. And
people will be like, what, you're old and you're overexposed.
And we're going to record 12 hours a day. And every week we're going to put out a 1 hour podcast based on the 12-hour a day jam sessions that we've done. So we have to put in each, we have to come in and record for 12 hours a day each.
For how long? Forever?
5 days a week. And
Okay.
then Podcast Mike edits it up and he puts out the episode each week.
Well, that was the rule with George Martin, right? If the Beatles are in studio, just always be recording because you just never know. And that's how they continue to release new material. Hey, Mike, you there? Have you fallen asleep? Are you still there?
I'm here. Yep.
How do you feel about 12-hour episodes of TOFOP, editing 60 hours a week to get 5 hours, going through 60 hours of TOFOP per week to release 5 hours of material?
I think it'd be good. Good full-time work. Good solid employment.
Oh,
for
no,
me,
we
I
won't
think.
pay. We won't pay you.
No.
You're still getting.
We're paying you for the 5 hours that we put out.
You're still getting paid the same as what we pay you now. Would you? What do you think about that?
That sounds horrific.
Yeah, I mean, it does. It sounds horrific for a lot of reasons.
Well, all right. How much? What?
Let me ask you this: how many hours? Because obviously these days, because of our time commitments and whatever, you tend to do like an hour-long-ish version of the show. Back in the day, we would do, much longer episodes than that. And like FOFOP episodes of definitely back in the day when I was living in LA and stuff would be longer than that. How long, if we were doing a live show, and I'm not talking like, hey, we're going to try to break some podcasting record or anything like that. That's not what I'm talking about here.
It's not a stunt podcast.
I'm just talking about how long do you think like the perfect episode of TOFOP will be, or that people would put up with I'm not even talking guests. Like I'm talking you
Just
and
you and
I doing this show. How long do you think people would put up with live?
I reckon 8 hours. I reckon 8.
Okay.
Well, how many do you reckon?
No, I thought you were going to go lower than that for a start, but you reckon 8. 8 hours.
I reckon 8. And I'm just thinking.
So if we said to our audience, do you think you could do 8? So if we said to the audience, we're going to do an 8-hour podcast. We're going to start at midday. We're going to finish at 8 o'clock. Do you want to come down and be part of this podcast? Do you think that there would be 200 people that would be willing to pay $50?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. 200. We'd get 200 in a canter.
For an 8-hour show.
Yep. I definitely.
But we won't let you
enough.
leave. You can't. You cannot leave.
It's like Squid Game. I reckon there's enough hardcore teabaggers out there who would want to be part of something like that. So I think if we were doing an 8-hour podcast every week or every month, then no. But if this was a one-off thing, I think like Superpod, there'd be people who'd want to be part of it. If nothing else, to see our mental breakdown after the 5-hour mark. I mean, I don't know that we could do it. Like I'm thinking now, do we have any safety nets? Like, is there anything we can go to? Like, Charlie's brought his old, diary in from when he was 16, or are we allowed any of that? Are we allowed to cheat?
I don't want us to cheat. I just want us to have access to the same things that we normally have access to.
Okay, so Wikipedia is there. I've got some stuff that I'm bringing up, from the past. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I reckon 8 hours we could do in our sleep.
All right. Well, there you go.
I'm not intimidated by that. So you want to do an 8-hour podcast?
An 8-hour podcast.
All right. All right. Do we have to do it? Are we announcing it and then hoping we get 200, or are we announcing it once we get 200?
Once we get 200, yeah. Like we need 200 people to say that they would be interested in going to an 8-hour podcast.
I think we'd have to do it in a city. I don't think we'd get 200 where we live. No. I think it would need to be like Melbourne or Sydney to get 200.
Plus, where we live, you don't want to do something for 8 hours. You'll have to run into those people again.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't tell you. I went to pick up some Japanese from Ocean Shores, which is sort of away from where we live, but still in the Shire. And everyone who works in there listens to TOFOP. They're all big fans. I couldn't believe it. Like, the chef came out to have a look. The girl behind the counter was like, Charlie. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, oh, big TOFOP fan. And then she's like, hey, guys, look who's here. Oh, Charlie. And they came out and they were all like all the staff at this one Japanese restaurant. They all listen to TOFOP. Apparently when they're setting up, they listen to TOFOP. And I'm like, that is wrong. Can I get a discount?
Yeah.
They didn't give me a discount.
They didn't even give you a discount.
No, but they listen to TOFOP.
I mean, it is
How's
a
that?
traditional Japanese way of preparing food to put on an episode of TOFOP as you're getting everything together in Japanese.
Well, isn't that on that? They're not. Oh, they weren't Japanese. It was just a Japanese restaurant.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay,
the chef,
yeah. So, can we name the restaurant? We're not blowing up their spot.
You don't
want
to.
to. Okay, all right. Okay, you can't. Yeah.
Oh,
okay,
is
you can't
that terrible?
It's okay. They didn't give you a discount. If they'd given you a discount, you might have remembered the name of the restaurant. Little lesson for everybody setting up in the restaurant right now. You'd be getting a sweet plug if you're giving Charlie a discount.
Let's go to the mailbag because I know you've got a hard out.
Yes.
So I've only got a few minutes left. This is from Teresa. Or Teresa. No, it's definitely Teresa. Actually, I don't know. It could be Teresa. She is definitely American too. Okay. She wants to talk about Drew Carey.
All right.
Hey guys, American here. I was just listening to the episode where you guys were talking about Drew Carey because I basically just noticed that you guys were doing new episodes again. What do you mean you just noticed? We've been back for a while now.
Well, that's okay. Might have other stuff going on.
Yeah, well, you live in America. There's a lot of stuff going on over there right now.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you guys knew that he's the current host of The Price is Right here in the US. I think we covered that.
Oh, no, we didn't really. We didn't talk about The Price is Right.
Okay.
I was aware, but I don't think I've ever seen him host The Price is Right in America. I was just aware that it was true.
He said that it has been a dream of his to become a host of this show. Really? Is there any game show that you dreamed of hosting?
Absolutely not.
I always liked Sale of the Century as a kid. I always thought that I didn't necessarily want to host it, but I always thought I'd actually do okay at Sale of the Century. It was trivia that wasn't as highbrow as kind of smart quiz shows. And it wasn't like lowbrow as like other game shows. It was right in that sweet spot of kind of like...
Right, but are you talking about hosting? Because you know you don't need to know the answers to the host of the show. They provide the answers as well.
No, that's what I'm saying. I never dreamed of hosting. I dreamt of being on Sale of the Century. I always thought if I could be on a game show, Sale of the Century was pitched right at my trivia level. Like it wasn't like really... it wasn't like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire with like really hard, obscure ones. It was kind of like... good general trivia.
Yeah, one of my whatever level of intelligence that I possess is very comprehensive, as in I can comprehend things easily, concepts and stuff like that. But my memory for facts, is like so, and that's what most of those shows are. Is like, can you remember this fact? And I am terrible at remembering facts and specifics.
Well, you did. What show did you do where Luke Darcy was your special category?
Oh my God. I forgot that I had even done that. It was some sort of sporting quiz on the ABC, was it?
Yeah. Was it like a Tony, what's his name?
Tony Squires?
I was going to say Tony Abbott. Tony Squires.
Maybe.
I remember you did a game show where you went in. But so you must have put a lot of homework into memorizing Luke Darcy, right?
I guess I did. I can't even, until you mentioned that, I had forgotten that ever happened. To the point where I did fucking 2 years of radio, where a good bit to fill in some fucking time on that radio show would have been going back to when I did a quiz on Luke Darcy.
Oh, you never mentioned it once when you worked with him?
Never came up because I had forgotten that it happened. God. And there would have been mornings where that would have been very fucking handy for me to fill in some time. My God.
I think it was called Head to Head, FYI. Is that the name of
the
show?
Head to Head. Head to Head was the name of the show. And
Mike, that was scary. You've never just busted in uninvited. I got a bit of a shock there. I thought, no, fine. Please feel free to do that anytime. But I got a bit of a shock. It's like, who is that?
Yeah, Head to Head.
Okay, so Drew, she continues, Drew is also one of the owners of the Seattle Sounders, which is a soccer team. They have a lot of fans here in Seattle. I used to work the games as a cashier.
Oh, actually, you know what? Can I just go back, just in case anyone's listening? Maybe a judge on a cooking show. Like not on a like, obviously a professional cooking show, like, or a host on a cooking show, just someone who gets to taste the food. So not the judge, like the host that also gets to go around and try the food so that they can host, like a Great British Bake Off or like a like Top Chef.
Free food.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I'm saying.
If there's someone out there, a quiz show to do that, like that's actually a job. Like you can be someone who goes around and just tastes food and stuff. Like,
I know, but like hotels. I just wanted. Yeah, I just like to be like on a cake show where I'm just like, yes, okay. I am going to try all of your cakes. That's great. Thank you.
They have lots of fans in Seattle, this Seattle Sounders. And I used to work at the games as a cashier in the concession stands. Their fans can get quite loud.
Okay.
I thought you guys would like to know that.
Well, they're the Sounders,
That makes sense. I think we did know that he was a big soccer fan because he takes photographs.
Yeah.
Not up
for the American women's football team, right?
Non-upskirting team, yeah. Okay, this is from a guy person. I'm assuming that's not a real name. _FOP. Hey, lads, not a doctor. Feel free to read out my name. I made it up anyway. I did. Your recent, probably 6 months ago by the time you read this, conversation about Charlie performing a radio show with his mates as a kid reminded me of a silly childhood artistic pursuit that I thought you would enjoy. When I was about 10, growing up in Perth, me and my best mate decided we would start a band. Pretty quickly, we realized we had no musical talent, no access to instruments, so we decided to start an air band. Ooh. And a move we regret looking back on it, we befriended a guy by the name of Michael, purely for his close proximity to the school and the fact that he had both a tape player and the Jimmy Barnes cassette album, Working Class Man. He was quickly relegated to playing the air triangle, while me and my mate took the air guitar, air drums, and air vocals. Is that a thing, air triangle? Firstly, is there any triangle present in a Jimmy Barnes song? And secondly, you could have given him some. I mean, I know you're taking guitar, drums, and vocals. There's another. Couldn't he play keys, air keys?
I mean, I would have thought keys. I would have thought you can throw in an extra guitar. Like, I mean, it's just air. No one's hearing it anyway.
Yeah. I think we lasted about 3 or 4 jam sessions before, just like 5, we broke up due to unreconcilable differences. One of us wanted to play the other tape we had, the Great Balls of Fire, and some of us thought we should stick exclusively to Barnesy. Yes, that is just like 5.
I mean, it is. It's musical difference. It's irreconcilable musical differences.
The good news is our friendship survived, and he was still best man at my wedding 20 years later. No idea what poor old Mike is up to these days.
He was the DJ. That was the thing. Yeah. He actually did the music on the night.
That is TOFOP for this week. Don't forget you can support us at patreon.com/TOFOP. Lots of great bonus content up there, including bonus episodes every fortnight where we answer Patreon subscribers' letters. There's also comic strips drawn by James Fosdyke, Everyone Relax, and Quantum Cop, and a bunch of other great stuff, behind the scenes photos. Go to patreon.com/TOFOP or go to tofop.com and check out our other great podcasts, including 2 Guys, 1 Cup and FOFOP. Who's on FOFOP this week, Will?
Justin Hamilton. It's a Hamo-FOP on FOFOP this week.
Hamo-FOP.
Haven't spoken to him for ages, so it was a very good chat. Lots of stuff all over the place. It's good fun. And I am on tour at the moment. So this weekend, I am in Sydney, Friday and Saturday night, my first new show in Sydney since 2019, Wilogical. And then on Sunday night, it is What You're Talking About, Will, my improvised show. And then election weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Wilogical in Brisbane. And then Sunday night, 2 shows of What You're Talking About, Will.
It sounds great. Go see Will. Give him money. He likes that. And if you work in a restaurant and you like our show, it's 10% off. That's all I'm
just going to go and get some Japanese and ocean shores and see if I could just get.
I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Will Anderson.
How long? Not long. Everyone relax.
This podcast is a TOFOP production.
Head to tofop.com for more.
Cool things for cool people.